Welcome back to the deep dive. If you're a physical, occupational, or a speech therapist, you know the landscape is shifting. It's shifting fast.
It really is.
And the demand for therapy services delivered right where the patient lives, I mean, it's just skyrocketing. We're talking about high quality, targeted care, but, in a private residence. But that desire to go mobile, it runs headlong into this massive administrative obstacle course. The challenge is really this. How do you provide that in-home care and bill under standard outpatient rules, we're talking Medicare Part B, without accidentally becoming a formal home health agency?
Or being treated like one.
Exactly. The administrative hurdles, especially credentialing with Medicare, Medicaid, and all the private insurers, can feel absolutely labyrinthine. So our mission today is to unpack this specific puzzle using some fresh expert analysis that was just published January 5th, 2026, to give you the clearest path forward for mobile providers.
And setting the stage clearly is so critical because the financial stakes are, well, they couldn't be higher. The source material really emphasizes how critical enrollment compliance is. If you fail to follow the correct path, your payment streams can just freeze overnight.
Wow.
The analysis repeatedly mentions things like outdated provider information or incorrect enrollment forms being the main cause of these sudden revenue halts. And that forces providers to spend months just chasing back payments. So the essential knowledge you need to gain, like right away, is understanding that crucial line between being an outpatient therapist who provides services at home and a full home health agency.
They're different universes.
Completely different universes governed by different federal statutes. And today, we are focused entirely on that outpatient Part B model.
Okay, let's unpack this then, and let's start with the most confusing question, what the critique called the licensure mystery.
The big one.
Yeah, so if I'm a licensed PT in my state, and I decide to start seeing patients in their homes, do I need to stop everything, go apply for a totally separate, often complex home health agency license?
And the definitive answer from the analysis is a resounding no, which is the great relief here.
Oh, thank goodness.
Right. You absolutely do not need a separate home health license unless, and this is a big asterisk, you intend to bill under a formal home health plan of care.
Which operates under Medicare Part A.
Exactly. A totally different system. For our mobile outpatient model, you just maintain your standard state professional license, OTPT or SLP, just like you would in a clinic.
So you're just changing your service location.
You're just changing the location, not your service type or your regulatory identity.
That's the crucial differentiator. Home-based outpatient therapists completely bypass that Part A structure and bill under Medicare Part B. But if the service itself looks identical, a therapist in the home, how does the payer, specifically Medicare, know the difference? How do they know how to pay you?
That's where the billing code genius comes in. Because you are still a Part B outpatient provider, you use the same standard CPT codes for the therapy itself.
So therapeutic exercise, manual therapy, all that stuff.
All the same codes. However, to correctly communicate the location to Medicare, you must use a very specific code, Place of Service 12.
POS 12.
POS 12, which is defined as home. This one little code on your claim form tells Medicare this is Part B outpatient care, delivered at the patient's permanent residence. It is the single most important code for compliant mobile Part B billing.
So POS 12 is the linchpin, and Medicare has specifically carved this out. They confirm that outpatient PT, OT, and speech pathology, even when it's in the home, falls under Part B, as long as you use that code.
As long as POS 12 is on the claim.
Okay, that clarifies the licensure part immediately. So now we can move to the next hurdle, enrollment. Setting up for mobile therapy still requires all the standard steps, right? Current state licenses, liability insurance, and an NPI.
Oh yeah, the National Provider Identifier is completely non-negotiable. The APTA is very clear on that.
But then we hit the Medicare enrollment forms themselves. Which path do you even take?
This is where we need to dive into that alphabet soup of CMS forms, because choosing the wrong one can definitely trigger those payment freezes you mentioned.
Okay.
The choice really just depends on your structure. So if you are a small practice, say an individual therapist or maybe a small group billing as individuals, you're looking at Form CMS A55I.
I for individual?
I for individual or independent. Exactly. Now, if you're a larger, more traditional clinic with a storefront, you're usually using Form CMS 855B.
B for business.
Right, B for business or group.
And then there's the much less common one, but it's important, Form CMS 855A. The source material says this is for teams that meet the definition of a rehabilitation agency. What does that even mean?
Yeah, a rehabilitation agency is a very specialized institutional provider. Think of a clinic that is primarily dedicated to providing comprehensive, coordinated, multidisciplinary services,
So PT, OT, and SLP all under one roof.
at least. And often nursing services, too, all under a physician's direction. If you meet that stricter definition, you're filing the institutional form, the CMS 855A. But for most independent mobile providers, you're either an I or a B.
So regardless of the form, you have to list your primary practice address. What if you're a mobile provider and you really just operate out of a home office? Can you list that?
You absolutely can, but you need to be prepared to show that it functions as a legitimate administrative office. And what's fascinating here, and what the source highlights as a major compliance risk, is that the reporting requirement extends beyond just that one main address.
What do you mean?
Because you're mobile, your Medicare Administrative Contractor, the MIC, which is your regional Medicare gatekeeper, they might require you to report each specific service location.
Oh, wow.
This is crucial. If you contract with, say, 5 different retirement communities, or you regularly see patients in one particular assisted living facility, the MAC might demand that those locations are linked to your enrollment record. You can't just assume your home office covers every place you let read.
So the MSC is really verifying that you're legitimate, not just processing paperwork.
Precisely. They're making sure your service points are real. And of course, underpinning all of this, you have the universal requirements, licensure verification, and a valid tax ID, or EIN, for pretty much all payers.
Okay, now that we've navigated the enrollment alphabet soup, let's talk about the elephant in the room for any mobile business. The money. Specifically what I'm calling the Part B billing paradox. You're leaving your facility, you're incurring costs for gas and time, yet the rules here are incredibly rigid.
Very rigid.
So let's start with the basics. Part B pays the non-facility outpatient rate. What does non-facility actually mean in financial terms?
The non-facility rate is essentially the lower fee schedule.
Lower why?
Because the cost of operating a clinic, the rent, utilities, equipment overhead, is assumed to be covered by the patient or their home, not by the payer. So the rate is fixed at that lower amount. And here's where it gets really interesting and, frankly, creates massive financial pressure. Medicare Part B explicitly does not include an extra travel fee or some special travel code. Your reimbursement for a 45-minute session using POS 12 is the exact same amount you'd get if the patient had driven to your clinic.
Wait a minute, that seems completely counterintuitive. If the goal of Part B is to increase access to care in the home, why wouldn't they account for the cost of driving there?
It's a legislative tightrope walk. Part B is designed to pay for the service, not the setting.
Oh.
So Medicare views that travel time as an administrative cost that your practice has to absorb, just like charting or calling payers. This forces mobile providers to optimize their schedules ruthlessly. You have to cluster patients geographically to make the model work financially.
That's a fixed constraint under Medicare, then.
A fixed constraint. Now, there is a small potential reprieve with private insurers. The analysis shows that if you're out of network, some plans may let you add a travel surcharge, but the vast majority of in-network contracts expect that visit fee to absorb the travel.
So you have to check every single contract.
Every single one.
That's the real trap, isn't it? The operational difficulty is high, but the financial return per visit is stuck at that lower non-facility rate.
Exactly. And to compound that, there is a critical compliance restriction that can destroy a claim instantly. Medicare prohibits billing Part B outpatient therapy if the patient is simultaneously receiving home health services under Medicare Part A.
Why such a harsh restriction? I mean, if the patient is homebound, getting skilled nursing under Part A, and they need some specialized outpatient speech therapy that isn't covered by that plan, why block the Part B service?
It's all about preventing duplication of services and payment for care that they believe should be or could be covered under that Part A episode.
So the two funding buckets can't overlap.
Cannot overlap for similar services. You, the outpatient provider, must verify that the patient is not currently under an active Part A home health episode. If they are, you cannot bill Part B for in-home services, full stop.
That is a massive compliance risk.
It's huge and requires constant communication with the patient and potentially with the home health agency involved.
And just to be crystal clear, we are talking about physical, in-person home visits here. This isn't telehealth.
Correct. Telehealth therapy over video or phone is an entirely different regulatory animal. It's billed with separate codes, usually POS 02 or POS 10, and it operates under its own specific evolving rules.
Okay, let's shift gears. Let's move beyond federal Medicare, which, believe it or not, is often the easiest part.
It really is.
We need to tackle managed care and commercial credentialing, which can be the true labyrinth. Starting with Medicaid, it's state-administered, Highly variable. If you want to serve those beneficiaries, you have to enroll in each state Medicaid program where you practice.
That's right. And many states don't even use fee-for-service Medicaid for OT, PT, and SLP anymore. They funnel those services through waiver programs or managed care plans.
So that means joining those networks.
It does. It requires the standard suite of documents, licenses, malpractice, background checks, but thankfully, most of this process is streamlined now, and the vehicle for that is often CAQH. For those who aren't familiar, CAQH, the Council for Affordable Quality Healthcare. Its ProView database is like a centralized hub. You submit all your credentialing data once.
And then the payers just pull from there.
The commercial payers and most managed Medicaid plans then access your info through CAQH instead of making you fill out their 50-page application every single time.
That cuts down on paperwork, but it raises an important question. Why is knowing your specific state Medicaid manual still so essential, even if you're federally Part B compliant?
Because of that state-level variability, even if the service is covered in general, a state Medicaid program might have unique codes or different prior authorization rules or specific billing instructions just for in-home therapy services.
And those state rules override federal advice.
They absolutely can. If you use the wrong code for a state waiver program, the claim is just rejected. You can't skip reading those manuals.
And for commercial payers, we're back to using CAQH ProView, uploading documents, NTI, W-9, references, all of it, and then waiting.
And here's a crucial best practice tip. This is directly from the source analysis that can prevent so much frustration. When you're credentialing with commercial plans, you have to explicitly communicate that your service model is outpatient therapy in the home.
Why is that so important?
Because many payer portals only have checkboxes for clinic or hospital. If you just check clinic and then submit a claim with POS 12, their system can automatically deny it.
Because the service occurred outside a listed facility?
Exactly. You need to proactively tell them, either in the interview or with extra documents, that you're seeking approval for in-home services under your standard Part B designation.
That clarity prevents so much back and forth. And finally, we can't forget the behemoth that is Medicare Advantage plans.
That's right. Being enrolled in traditional Medicare Part B is only the very first step. MA plans are private insurance products. They require you to join their specific network.
So your Part B enrollment is necessary, but it's not sufficient.
Not at all. Even if a patient has an MA plan, you must be credentialed specifically with that carrier, whether it's Humana, United, Aetna, or you will be out of network.
That is a lot to navigate, but the structure is finally starting to feel clear. So let's bring it all back together for you, the listener. What are the key takeaways here? First, the foundation is solid Part B enrollment. You have to be honest about whether you're an 855I, an 855B, or that rare 855A. Second, you must consistently use that crucial place of service 12 code to designate the patient's home.
And third, you have to understand that financial tightrope. There is no separate travel fee under Medicare Part B, which forces you to be efficient. And crucially, you have to actively screen every Part B patient to make sure they are not simultaneously receiving Part A home health.
Right, avoiding that high-risk overlap. So the ultimate takeaway is that the core process mirrors standard outpatient practice, but you must be meticulous. You have to specify your service model is mobile. You have to verify the patient's home qualifies as an approved location with each payer, and you have to use that POS 12 code flawlessly.
And as a final thought for deeper exploration, especially as you grow your practice and bring on staff, supervision rules for assistants, your PTAs, and your CODAs doing home visits can vary significantly. For outpatient Part B, supervision has to strictly follow your State Practice Act. That law dictates whether you need hands-on, direct, or general supervision for off-site care.
And that's a critical distinction.
It's a huge operational distinction because it's very different from the often more lenient general supervision allowed when you're billing under Part A home health rules. So given that state practice acts and specific payer rules are the major variables after you get federal enrollment sorted, your final homework should be this. Research how your state specifically defines the requirements for ensuring your professional liability and workers' comp insurance adequately covers off-site and home visits.
Because the physical setting changes the risk profile.
Completely. And you need to be legally and financially covered for every single mile you drive.
That's a perfect and necessary final thought. Go check your state manuals, verify those insurance documents, and we'll catch you next time for the next deep dive.